Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to the newest episode of Uncovering the Underground Radio podcast show, brought to you by my companies Brutal Business Entertainment and Celestial Oddities Radio. As always, I am your host, Reverend Frater Crow, and I appreciate you listening in tonight. Whether listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded this to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Just make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on whatever platform you might be listening to us from iTunes to iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, Google Podcast, or even Amazon Podcast. We air across absolutely everywhere. So as I said, feel free to listen where you like the most, but by clicking on those buttons, moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in tune with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives. And there is something for absolutely everyone that's a lover of underground entertainment, from music to modeling to stars of the big screen, from comedy and audio and oddities and everything in between. We bring you an episode each and every week, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we just hang out, get to talk with, interview, and discuss great topics with up-and-comers across many different platforms. Tonight is no different. We have Southern Indiana State band Shockwave Theory with us. We are going to be getting to know them a little bit better here in just a few moments. If you missed last week's episode, we had Dementia's Creed, which is a Cincinnati, Ohio, dark, ambient, atmospheric, progressive, black death metal band. Now, try to say that 3 times, you won't be able to. When they gave me their title of what they consider themselves, it was quite lengthy, just like their music. I mean, we're talking 7-8 minute songs, very in-depth interview, and it was a fun time. So make sure you jump back to that, as well as all the other episodes of Season 2. Tonight is Episode 5 of Season 2, so 5 great episodes to get caught up with if you've missed any, and last season's 65 episodes to get caught up with. So certainly 150 some hours worth of great entertainment that you guys can certainly dive into, and we appreciate you doing so. If you have any suggestions of what you want to see us do on the show, do differently with the show, guests you would like to see us have on the show, you can feel free to drop us a line at celestialoddities@gmail.com. Again, that is celestialoddities@gmail.com. You can add us on the Uncovering the Underground Facebook page, and great community, great way of talking and seeing different bands and seeing more of the visualization of the guests that we have on. And then we also have ways of reaching me through my personal Facebook page, which is Frater Crow on Facebook. Now, we do want to thank everybody for their support so far this season. We have had a great run. We've had a lot of different types of guests. We are in a metal spot right now where the last couple guests and the next few to come are all metal bands, which we certainly love and is near and dear to my heart. But don't fret if you're not a metal fan. We will be bringing other type of artists throughout the season. We will be bringing other oddities vendors on. We will be bringing models on and actors and things, as we always do. So stick around. But tonight, as I said, we have Shockwave Theory, which formed in 2020. Shockwave Theory is a 5-piece metal band hailing from Southern Indiana, combining elements from bands like Pantera and Lamb of God, all the way to vocal styles like Signs of the Swarm. Shockwave Theory surely has a little bit of everything for everyone, and they're out to make a name in the heavy metal scene, all while making it new and unique. Shockwave Theory was formed by longtime friends Nate Reynolds and Jesse Harris, who in just a few short weeks linked up with Corbin Pinkston and Anthony Geary and had brought them on board, completing the band's lineup. Shortly after the debut single Salvation was written and released for the world to hear, in 2021, Let's Go to War was written with a whole new mindset and became their new staple for the heavy music scene. A few short months after, they added a 5th and final member with Zac Postin and quickly began adding the final touches to their newest single, Jaded, which is the band's most unique song to date. As I said, Shockwave Theory is Corbin Pinkston on lead vocals, Nate Reynolds on lead guitar and clean vocals, AJ Geary on bass, Zac Postin on rhythm guitar, and Jesse Harris on drums. We are with 3 of the members tonight. Unfortunately, one was not able to make it, and that was AJ. And then Corbin is having some trouble because they're getting hit with storms right now, as am I also. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, so folks, that's why we're running a little bit behind this evening. We apologize. stuff's flickering on and off, but we always have a good time whenever the elements are fucking with us. So thank you for sticking around and, listening. And as normal, go ahead and light up a joint, crack open a beer, kick up your feet, and lend me your ears as we dig together and uncover the underground with Shockwave Theory. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, doing wonderful, fellas. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you working with the technical difficulties that we were facing and the storms and lights coming on and off. It's always a fun time when you're trying to do live episodes. That's why most people don't do them, because there's always something that happens, but I enjoy the chaos.
Absolutely. It's no fun without any challenge.
Oh, absolutely. So how are you guys doing tonight? Is the storm hitting pretty hard over there? I know that Corbin certainly said he was getting hit and he lost all power, but how are you guys doing?
Me and Zach live in the same town, and it did rain pretty much all dang day, but all we got is maybe like 20-mile-per-hour winds, if that.
Okay,
and that's
so
about
not
it.
too bad.
We got a flood warning, but my town floods anyway.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that it isn't too bad over there. Out here, it's just consistent rain. It's been raining since like 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then it's been high winds as well. So hopefully it doesn't get too much worse than that for anybody out there. But we got some people already tuning in and leaving comments. One thing I did want to mention, folks, if you are listening out there and you want to not only listen but engage with the show, if you go through Spreaker, which is our hosting company, that is Spreaker, so speaker with an R. You can look them up on the app market or on Spreaker.com. It'll allow you to not only listen to the show, but you can leave comments, ask our guests questions, and really participate in the show. We will read off your comments and questions on the air as normal, and we always, appreciate you guys engaging. That is one thing I wanted to throw out there. So, fellas, I like to jump into all my interviews very traditionally whenever I kick in. I do a lot of things different than most, but one of the things I do stay consistent in is the very first question. The very first question is really, we read your bio. We know that obviously you guys came together as originally just kind of a friend band that grew into something beyond what you guys had thought. But why don't you tell us, whoever wants to jump in first, whether that's you, Nate, or whether that's you, Jesse, how you guys really came up with the idea of doing this. Was this just supposed to be a fun jam project, or, was it meant to be something more?
Well, Nate, if I may.
Yeah, go right ahead.
How it started is I actually was in another band called Shadows of Insanity, and I was in that band for quite a while, and then one day Nate came up to hang out with me. I convinced him to jam with that band at the time, and convinced him to join. And me and him were in that band for a pretty short time together. And I brought in Zach as well in that band. Excuse me, but it didn't really work out with that band because one of the founding members of that band was controlling, one of those, this is my band, so ultimately I get to make the decisions here kind of attitude. So I quit that band, and Nate quit right with me, and so did Zach right after. And then Nate came to me about wanting to start another band, and I was like, hell yeah. So we did immediately. Me and him got together, and we jammed together for a minute, and I immediately wanted to bring AJ because he's a longtime friend, a good friend of mine, and I wanted to bring him into the band. So I brought him in originally as a vocalist. But he kept jumping around because we didn't really know exactly where to put him at. But he's one of those guys, he could pretty well start learning anything and get right on it. So we put him on bass because he's actually pretty decent on guitar and bass, actually. And then I wanted to bring Corbin in because I was supposed to try to bring him in the other band, Shadows of Insanity. But again, one of the founding member in that band was not really all that communicative with actually trying to get Corbin to come join. So I was like, screw it, we're going to make sure he gets into this one. So I had him just trying it out was practically a formality because I wanted him in no matter what. And then later on, we brought Zach in quite a bit later, but yeah.
Which is kind of funny that you guys were kind of together in a group, split some of you stayed together, added some new pieces, and then it led back to you guys fully being together pretty much again, the three of you. So interesting how that worked out, but sometimes, things have to fall apart before they can come together. So I'm glad to see that has worked out for you guys. You have a great sound, and certainly for the fans listening out there tonight here shortly, we will jump into one of the two songs that we're playing this evening. But that's how I first came across you guys. I was looking for different guests for this season when I decided to bring back the show, and I forget who I was checking out, but then it suggested two bands, Dementia's Creed, which was last week's guest, and then you guys. So actually it was kind of funny, within the same 5-minute period, it suggested my last guest and you guys. And I listened to both and was impressed by both, very different in sound from one another, but I had never heard of you guys, and it was just a random bloop, pop-up suggestion, and there you were. So I'm glad I came across you guys, and glad to be able to bring you on this evening and get to pick your brains a little bit.
I'm glad to be here, and that's awesome that you were able to find out about us that way.
It's funny, I was mentioning to the band last week, Facebook, obviously you start to talk about it, wanting to look for a vehicle or something like that, and you get on Facebook and all of a sudden there's ads for vehicles. They listen to you, they pop up what it is that you're doing, because that's one of the parts of the features of their program. But it was the same thing with bands. I start to talk about, I need new guests for my upcoming radio show, and I'm telling friends and things, and I get on, and all of a sudden there's all these suggestions. Check out so-and-so. And I mean, if normally you don't get suggestions for bands on Facebook randomly, at least I wasn't for the longest time, but as I started to launch season 2 of the show, all of a sudden all these bands are popping up now as suggestions, and I'm like, well, they're apparently wanting me to connect with these people, so we're going to do it. But no, I was glad to come across you guys and bring you on, and I haven't been to a lot of the states out there that of guests that I brought on, but I have been to Indiana several times. In fact, going to festivals myself as a musician and playing in Indiana State. So it was fun to bring you guys on, because you guys and our next guest next week are from Indiana State. And I had a blast when I was out there. So I don't know what you guys feel about the local scene. Some people love their local scene, some don't. I had a blast when I was in Indiana, and there was a lot of support there. So how do you guys feel? And I'll actually ask Zach, how do you guys feel about the local music scene out there? Is it pretty impressive, or has it died down? I mean, I know things go through waves.
Well, actually, I consider myself a veteran of the sort of the local scene. It used to be amazing. I mean, we used to have bands like Suicide Silence, Edgein, all kinds of bands. Origin, that's another band. Just random bands that just show up through the town and would jump on a bill with us. And we had 3 different local venues in Evansville, and they closed them all down. And it seems like once they closed down, like the scene pretty much died there for a good 10 years, until just recently, past 2 years ago, they opened up the venue is what it's called. But back about 10 years ago, I played in a signed band that we were on Inner Strength Records, and we brought a lot of local bands from out west and north coast and stuff into town, and it was good. It was awesome there for a while, and then it just, like I said, once those venues closed down, it died, man. And it's kind of just slowly coming back since they have this new venue open, which has been a really cool process. It's slowly getting bigger, more people come. And when we played, I mean, it was a really awesome turnout, our first show.
That's
so
great.
I hope that it stays that way, and keeps growing.
I hope so. I hope, obviously after everything that's happened with COVID the last 2 years, and people not being able to get together, and there not being as many shows, and things really just being rough, I'm hoping that, as things eventually kind of start to return to normal, that brings bigger crowds to shows, because the music industry has certainly taken a hell of a hit in a lot of different ways. So I'm hoping that in the adverse of that, once everything does start to return, that for quite a while the shows are just wall to wall. That's a great way as an artist to come back out after a long period and say, I've only played 3 shows over the last 2 years, and then you come back out and for 15 shows it's packed wall to wall, like it used to be. Because, as you said, 10, 15 years ago when I was performing, Every local show was like that. Every local show had lines going down the block. They were solid, wall to wall, a love for music, and then it would die and there'd be nobody. Then it would come back and the scene would be, you know, impressive again, and then it would die again. It went through waves, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of wave we get once things clear up.
Definitely. I feel like things will slowly start to open up, and like won't be as scared to come out. And I mean, it already feels that way kind of like this past, I want to say 6 months to a year, but there for a while, I mean, it was slowly struggling. I didn't think I was ever going to go to another concert again there for a while. And then last fall, I went to see Soulfly in Louisville. That was my first concert back. And then 2 weeks later, went to Knotfest. And I'm like, after not seeing shows for 2 years because of all this, I mean, oh my God, it was such an amazing experience. I literally did not think I was going to see another concert again. Like, I thought this was, you know, going to be a never-ending thing. And the mask mandates, or not mask mandates, but just mandates in general, you know, people being afraid to, you know, get in, you know, area like that altogether, getting sick and all that. I mean,
it is a scary thing, man. I mean, I have went to 1 or 2 shows during this, but I'm still keeping my distance. I have 2 young children, so I try to do everything I can to protect them. But it was nice to get out and you know, see, I think 2 shows over the last 2 years, one of which we had the opportunity, really great opportunity for some, you know, fantastic seats for Slipknot here at it's not even the Post-Gazette Pavilion anymore, but I still call it that. It was called that for years. We were like 4 rows, 5 rows back from the front main stage, and just an awesome show. Them and Killswitch Engaged, and you know, that was our first show back, my wife and I, to get out and see, you know, music for like a year and a half, and it was healing to the soul. But as you said, it is kind of terrifying. You got thousands and thousands of people there, and you're like, shit, I hope I don't get sick. I hope we don't catch something. You know, it's a risk going out. There's another show coming up. Our guest 2 weeks ago, War, they're actually playing in Incarceration with Lamb of God and Black Label Society and Papa Roach and all those guys. And I really want to go to that, and it's at the penitentiary in Ohio. But I'm kind of iffy on that because it's inside walls. There's going to be thousands of people for 3 days and like 100 bands. So I really want to go, but I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just going to kind of hold out on that one. But yeah, slowly things are going to return to normal. The fear will slowly eventually go away. And I think people will return back to what once was, and it'll be a blessing for everybody.
Tell you what, it's funny you said that. I have to share this. Whenever it was the Soulfly show that I was at, which I just happened to hear like a week ago that this venue is now closed down. But I was watching them, and I'm right in front of Dino Pizarres from Fear Factory and all of his projects, and I'm just like, he's like a god. He's the reason, a lot of the reason I started playing guitar. And I'm just, you know, right like 2 feet away from him. There's no barricade or anything. And I'm really resting my hands in front of, you know, right against his pedal board. And I just happened to kind of look out of the peripheral vision of my eye, you know, to the bassist coming to the left side of him. And as I do that, I follow my eye sideways. The guy next to me is screaming the lyrics, just screaming, just having a good old time. And a big old wad of spit flies out of his eye, or out of his mouth into my eye. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, disgusting. Oh my God, now I'm probably going to have COVID and my eye's going to swell shut. Oh my God, it's
that's
disgusting.
A fear, man. I mean, I won't even sugarcoat it. My wife, myself, and both of our children had gotten COVID. We were very selective on going out. We were very protective with wearing our masks and everything, and we still caught it. And it was brutal. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. I mean, for weeks was sick. We had the initial week and a half, 2 weeks where we just felt like death. And then afterwards, there was about a 2 or 3 week period where I just still felt like shit. I was having a hard time breathing. My lungs, even now, 6, 7 weeks later, it still hurt. And I'm still, whenever I get winded, I'll go down and carry a couple things up from the car, and I stand there for a couple minutes and I'm wheezing. I never did that before. So, I mean, it is no joke, and you have to be cautious of it. I mean, I know that firsthand as well. Unfortunately, we lost several family members in the last 4 months. It's been quite staggering for those that, are close to me or follow me. They've seen a lot of that hardships that have happened, and several of them were COVID, and I got to see it take people that were completely healthy, and then 2 weeks later were gone from this earth. And it's just wild. So it's like you want to go out, and you have to, for your sanity, still go out and enjoy yourself from time to time, or you'll snap. But you have to, when you do go out, have that fear in the back of your mind. Well, I hope no one fucking coughs on me, or I don't touch the wrong surface and something happen. And it's just wild to know that we're in that kind of world right now. But I'm hoping in another year or so, within another year, everything trickles back. I want to go out and be in the park and walk around where other people are walking around. I want to go to shows. I want to go to restaurants. I want to walk down the fucking street and see other human beings and not feel like I'm on an apocalyptic planet. So hopefully these things will slowly start coming together. But, I mean, that brings me to a good question. We'll jump back. To you, Nate. What do you feel as far as, like, with this last 2 years, how has that been for a band for you guys, with writing, with practicing, with trying to do anything productive? Has it slowed you down, or have you guys been able to work with it pretty good?
Well, we've been able to at least write and record our 2 singles, which we had 3, Salvation that you mentioned earlier, but like you said, that was a whole different creature, and we felt that it really didn't fit the project that we're going for right now. So we might rewrite that and bring it back later, but for the moment, these 2 and the one that we currently have in the works are definitely going to be. I feel like they're going to be really appreciated, especially this new one. But the past couple of years have made it rough in other ways, and it's kind of helped in other ways because it's like the motivation and urgency of the whole situation. It kind of gives you the kick in the pants to go ahead and get your work done, go ahead and get it out there. And with the world going as it is, I almost kind of feel like it's our obligation as musicians to keep working and to keep putting material out and to try to keep people entertained and try to keep people pushing forward the same way that music pushes us forward. And it's always been my goal to take what music does for me and put it back out there and let my music do for other people what music has done for me in the first place.
Well, I think you made a really good point. I'm glad you said that, because I've asked several questions from our guests this newest season here, season 2, about, the hardships of COVID and how they've overcome those things. But you were the first person to say that, and I really like that you feel as a musician it's your obligation to supply to the masses the medicine that they need to help get them through it, as music has helped you guys get through. And that's actually a very important thing, because if we didn't have entertainment like music, if we didn't have TV or movies, if we didn't have those things that we enjoy as our releases, and it was all just taken away and we couldn't leave our house, how much more chaos would be going on out there? How much more anger? How much more crime? Because, I mean, right now, I'm sure I'm not the only one noticing that the crime rates across the country and in most cities, and especially even mine, has tripled. I mean, the murder rate of what's going on here, at least in my area, is insane right now. And it's because as tensions build, as inflation builds, it's going to cause more anger and more violence. But at least there is those things that help even them out, like music and media. You take those away, and it becomes a war ground. So I'm really glad that you said that, Nate, that you guys feel that it's your obligation, because it does help. It helps to be the release. You guys release your energy by putting it into the music, and your fans release it by listening to it.
Absolutely, and you can easily see that if you look back during the 20s and like the Great Depression, because that's where it really stood out to me. because if you notice, looking back during those times, the people who were the few people who were pretty comfortable back then was mostly the musicians and like the jazz and blues musicians, because during that awful time period, if you had any kind of money and any kind of spare time, you were going to spend it drinking at the jazz club, seeing the live band perform.
That's true. You would. And the thing is musicians, we're built different. Not all of us, but most of us are. I mean, here's the thing. If you are avid about your music, especially if you're someone who makes a career out of your music, unless you have made it big, you don't really expect to make much. There's a lot of starving artists out there touring cities, 5 brothers crammed in a van, driving across country, playing shows for dollars to be able to make it to the next city. Now, most people can't do that, but you guys survive when you do that. And why that, I mean, your guys are a different beast, or, bands in general are a different beast, is you have something like the Great Depression where most people were used to the money that now is not there. The musicians are like, hey, man, this ain't shit to me. We've been doing this. So that's what makes it, that's what makes it easy for them to live. But now you have a group of people that, to get away from that pain, drive themselves to the music. So now those people are actually making more money in the music scene. So it's kind of a paradox, which is funny. But like I said, musicians are built different in that sense that, hey, you talk about struggling, try living in a van for 35, 40 days with 4 other dudes who stink like ass. And, by the end of it, you don't even like them. We talked about that a couple episodes. I mean, I've done some touring before, and I love my brothers, but by the end of it, you want to strangle them with your belt while they sleep. And eventually you get a little bit of time away and you fall back in love with each other as brothers again, and you're like, all right, let's get back to work. But after, 30 days straight with anybody, don't matter who it is, you cram you and your wife into a van for 30 days straight, you're going to want to kill each other. I mean, it's just how it goes. But no, musicians are definitely built different. But I'll tell you what, why don't we jump into one of your guys' first songs, and I'll circle back to you, Jesse, since we haven't jumped back to you yet. We have 2 different songs to pick from. We have Jaded and we have Let's Go to War. Which of the 2 would you like to pick, and tell us a little bit about it?
I would, or go ahead, Jesse.
Personally, I'd say I like Jaded. Actually, as a band, we all like Jaded more, just because so far, each time we write and create a new song, like, it just is that much better each time. Like, hell, my drumming skills really start to show more and more in each song. So Jaded would be the better of the 2 to really showcase. Although, don't get me wrong, Let's Go to War is still a simple yet fantastic song because of what it's about. Let's Go to War is, metaphorically speaking, about just a hype song about, let's get shit done, let's get going. And not necessarily literally about let's go to war, but like, I'm not very good at talking.
Just that sentiment, of really, like you said, let's get it done. Let's get amped up and let's make something happen. Let's make moves.
Well, it's about not letting whatever you're going up against win. Like if you got a boss that's treating you like way worse than he should, or a teenager who got a parent that's being a little bit too rough or something, and or got a sibling or a bully or at school or something that's really getting to them. And it's not necessarily a song about go beat somebody up, but it's like conquer what it is that's ailing you, and don't allow that to defeat you. It's when you get down to the core of it, it's an anti-suicide song.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to go with that one because I know we talked about both there, but since we just kind of gave a really good interlude for Let's Go to War, why don't we go ahead and do that, folks? We're going to showcase the first song tonight from Shockwave Theory here on Uncovering the Underground. This song is Let's Go to War. We'll be right back after this.
And this this is how I come to life when the world is made messed up, be messed up, fed up with all this bloody lies. And this is how I fight for life when the people are cold and there's nothing left to hold. We'll sacrifice freedom for slice of life. This is how we fight back when they're still on the top of the and casting walls. It's such a disaster. And this is how we will achieve. Living out the night with the actions still hands.
And we are back on Uncovering the Underground Radio podcast show. We have been hanging out for the last half an hour or so with Shockwave Theory from the southern part of Indiana State. They are a 5-piece metal band that we have 3 of the members with us this evening, and we've been finding out a little bit about who they are, the music that they create, what the scene is like in their local scene and state, and some of the history of the individual members themselves. So if you're just tuning in now, don't fret if you've missed anything. You can always go back after the show is done and listen from the beginning, and we certainly advise that you do so. But for the time being, you'll have to listen with us live until we finish up. We got about another 45 minutes or so of this episode tonight. As I said, if you miss anything, it's all recorded. You can go back and listen at any time. Share it to your friends, share it to your family, and spread it around. We do have some people giving some devil horns. We have some people tuning in saying listening right now. Well, that's great. We appreciate you listening. If it sounds okay, let us know. If it doesn't sound okay, let us know. But I think that it should. So, fellas, that is a heavy-hitting song. I can see why you guys like that. And I like the fact "rise up," as you say throughout the song. I mean, as Nate said, and you did too, Jesse, it's really about overcoming obstacles, and rising up beyond the limits of your own limitations, being something beyond yourself.
Exactly, yeah. and overcoming your own personal war, whatever it is you happen to be going to war with.
which is a lot of things, especially nowadays. Like we said, with COVID and everything else going on, you have a lot of people battling, the worry of work, the worry of family, the worry of safety, the worry of health, the worry of inflation and being able to survive and go forward, and just the depression. I mean, unfortunately,
Right.
when you have times like this, you do have an increase in depression as well. Unfortunately, I lost a friend. I said, there's been several people that I've lost over the last 4 months. One of them was a good friend of mine who never seemed depressed whatsoever. And I don't know what the reason is. He didn't leave a note by any means, but he did take his own life very suddenly. And I can only help but feel that a part of it had to have been with what's going on in the world, because he never seemed to be that type. But then again, whoever knows what someone else is thinking inside their head. So it's really hard to say.
That's right. I hate to hear that you've been through that, because I've been through that a few times myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, I come from a war zone, man. I've had, it sounds just wild to think about, but the area I come from, there's not a lot here. The town that I grew up in, all the industry shut down, all the warehouses and factories shut down. Really was nothing left for anybody to do, and it became a very heavy drug town. And over the years, I've lost over 40-some friends or acquaintances to drug overdoses, have had about 15 suicides, and then just a slew of other accidents or, unexpected events that have happened. But it never, never gets any easier no matter how many have happened. But yeah, it's, times like these, you see people really start to have a hard time coping with their inner demons when they can't go out and at least find that escape. So what you said earlier with giving people the medicine that they need, that helps, because if you didn't have that, you'd have a lot more of, those type of situations happening.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal connection with the what would be like the addiction area in this area, because my little brother, he's a recovering meth addict and a recovering alcoholic, and he actually got himself in some pretty bad trouble, and was in jail for a little bit and everything, and thankfully he actually got off pretty good, and he's been recovering. He's been in a little program where he lives in one of those group houses right now, and he's practically done with the program. He's got himself a job, he's getting his stuff situated like that. He's doing fantastic, but there for a while and stuff, he was doing horrible, because I watched him be coming down from a high one time on the couch, and I didn't know how to even react or what to do, because he was just sitting, laying there like he was half asleep, and I didn't know what to do about it. I was just on my laptop in the living room, and I didn't know what to do or say or think or anything. I just wanted to help him, but so thankfully he's being helped now, and he's doing fantastic. And I even got to see him earlier today, because he's able to he has a decent amount of freedom there where we can go pick him up and stuff as long as he's free. He actually had some stuff to do today anyway here in my county, court stuff. But aside from that, yeah, it's great to see him. He's been doing great. So I'm absolutely thankful that he did not fall into the cracks of the darker side of what could have happened. He didn't overdose. He didn't get further into anything. He did finally get help, and I know not everyone gets that chance. And even still, he struggles with it. He's on medication for some mental things. But I know even a lot of people don't always get that, get a lot of the breaks that he got. And so I'm glad that he did, and that I get to still see him every day. I know not everyone gets to.
No, that's important, man. I mean, it's a battle that's being waged across the country, especially now more than ever. I mean, drugs have become more easily accessible now, especially with harder drugs, over the years. And unfortunately, there is a war in the streets on narcotics and opiates and pain pills and pain prescriptions, and it is a battle being fought out there, and so many unfortunately do lose that battle. So, I wish you and your family nothing but the best, and hope he continues his sobriety and is able to maintain that. It's a hard battle. You have to take it day by day, but hopefully he continues to keep his head up and see beyond that, because unfortunately, it's a false sense of freedom. It's a false sense of happiness. And when you're in it, you don't see outside of it. So most people that party hard day in and day out are like, I'm having a great time, I'm loving life. And they believe that. But they don't see that they're actually not. They're drowning in their own misery, and it's only once you get away from that, you get clean and you're distanced from it, that you're like, man, was I not happy. I just didn't know I wasn't. It's like the old saying that they say, you can't see the forest from the trees. That's exactly it. When you're in it, you don't see the forest. But when you walk away from it and turn around, you're like, holy shit, and that's how it is. So unfortunately, that's a war that's being waged all over the place. And I'm hoping as things return with music venues and shows, that can start to help people find that healing that they need, maybe give them something to go to. And that's a reason I booked shows for years, dozens and dozens of shows, and brought metal bands in, was to give kids something to do away from partying and drugs in this area. And it worked very good for a long time. About 15 years we did that. So, music is a healing thing. So that's great. One of the places I played was out in Indiana that is pretty heavily hitting drug-wise. I don't know if you guys know, I'm not sure in correlation to you guys where it would be. The festival that I played years back when I came was in Anderson, Indiana. And
got my package from there today. I think it's just a little bit north of Indianapolis.
I believe it is. Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, that town's a little sketchy. Whenever, and I love to tell the story, so I'll just give a quick insert of it. When you pull into a hotel at 2:00 in the morning, and you see someone pissing on the side of that hotel at 2:00 in the morning, something's about to go down. Now, when you notice that the person doing it's actually the one that works there, then it's really about to go down. Now here's when it gets even better. Normally, if you pull one in, someone's like, you're working and you piss on your own building, which is weird as the worker. If you're doing that and someone pulls in, you'd be like, oh shit, and you try to tuck it away and walk away and get away with it. No, not this cat. He waved at me. He waved at me and continued to piss on his own employment building. And then walked in and he's like, how can I help you guys? And I'm like, yeah, we got a room for the night. I mean, the entire time we were there, that was just a weird, we were in some type of fantasy land. I don't know. So for anybody out there that knows about Anderson, Indiana, you know what I'm talking about. Crazy place.
Sounds like 5-star.
I bet the free breakfast that morning was amazing.
I didn't eat shit from that place because I'll tell you what, man. There was a guy moaning like a zombie the whole night down the hall. I don't know. I don't know if there was something physically wrong with him. I think there must have been, but all night long for hours. There was this infestation of stink bugs in the hallway where there was literally 400 or 500 stink bugs in the one corner climbing down the wall like it was a horror movie. But we'd already paid for our room. We were already about 10 hours away from home. And I'm like, fuck it, we're staying here. But when we left, I'm like, never again am I coming back to Anderson, Indiana. So fun times in Indiana, that's for sure. But why don't you guys?
Indiana's one of those small town. A lot of small towns are sketchy as hell sometimes.
Well, it is a little sketchy because when we're seeing people at the festival and we were talking about some of the experiences we were having. We didn't say where we were staying, and about 3 different times random people were like, "You're not staying in Anderson, are you?" And I knew that was up. When they knew where I was staying without me saying it, I'm like, yeah, why? And they're like, oh, bro, you don't stay in Anderson. So I knew something was up. When the first guy said it, I thought it was funny. When the second guy said it, I got worried. When the third one said it, I'm like, we fucked up. So it was a good time. But why don't we jump back to you, Zac? I want to ask, we asked our last guest that we had on the show, as someone who's been around for a while, as you said, you've played in some pretty successful bands and you've done, quite a bit with the scene in the past when it was booming and kind of reviving that now. How are your thoughts on how the scene has really changed over the years in regards to some of the aspects of, we once were handing out CDs and, mixtapes. Now there's a lot of that going away, and it's really digital. And then you also have, people really not bringing out full instruments on stage anymore, and people are bringing out and plugging, directly in DI ports and all the changes in the last 10 years that have happened in the music scene to switch more to a digital age. How are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you see is the current state of music? I mean, do you see a lot of these things going away? Do you see CDs going away? Do you see, amplifiers on stage going away and people just directly plugging into pedals into the PA systems? I mean, what are your thoughts on some of the new changes?
Well, I can say that, personally, getting older, one of the top things that you just mentioned, plugging directly in, being in the future and all, I didn't realize back then, hauling full stack in, every night, lugging it around. Now you've got these rack mount pods you can just bring, and hook up to the house PA, and you've got that, and you don't see the amps on stage as much anymore. And then I think whenever I started seeing the albums going away, it was right when MySpace started dying down, was whenever the scene started to die and everybody slowly started to migrate to Facebook. That's when like all the big changes started happening. And I can definitely say I never expected something like Spotify or whatever to come along and just totally, nobody I know buys CDs anymore hardly. Their physical copies are put away in the closet, it seems like. I never thought I'd see that in a million years, and it is crazy to think about. And there's a lot of changes, a lot of things that I wish that would come back, and I got a lot of mixed feelings about it. I could go on and on about it forever, but some things are good about the new age, and some of it, it's kind of handy, and some of it then again is, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of a lazy age moving. Speaking of, coming and playing a show and not wanting to plug around a amplifier anymore, kind of makes me say, hey, I'm getting old and lazy, but it's so convenient. And you got your amp tones there. It's less to go wrong. Back then, I had a huge pedal board that would, I'd have right there in front of the monitor, and don't have to worry about the drunk guy, pouring beer on my pedal board anymore. I don't have to worry about. I played Southern Indiana Metal Fest one year, and it was in July, and there was dust everywhere, and I don't know what it did. It just got all over everything, and it made everything sound horrible, god awful. And now I don't have to worry about that. Everything is. I use a Line 6 Veta 2 head and cabinet, and my tone, I don't have to worry about it changing or blowing tubes every night. My tone's pretty much the same if I want. It's kind of less to worry about, less of a headache, but I don't know, there's some things I miss about it, and it's less of a headache, but then again, you realize you're getting older. The future is here. That's all I can say about it. I could go on and on.
I think it is. One of the guests said recently, they're like, you know what, yeah, it's unfortunate to see some of these changes, but they also said, life's always changing, and if you don't change with it, it's going to change without you. And it was a good point. It is. I don't mind the changing of music from CDs to strictly digital as much as I mind the instrumentation going from physical to just strictly plug-in. I do miss CDs. I loved going and buying a CD and unraveling the cellophane and smelling it and being a part of it. And I will always miss that and that experience where music was a journey rather than a click of a thumb. Because now I want a brand new album. Oh, did you hear Lamb of God's new album's out? No, I didn't. Click, I just bought it. Click, I listen to a couple songs, and then I move on to the next album. I never even heard song 8, 9, and 10 because every time I only listened to the first 3. No. When you used to go physically buy that album, you listened to every goddamn song that was on that album over and over again, and that doesn't happen now. So there are changes like that happen, but I understand that that's a thing that there's no way around it. Now, I'm a weirdo when it comes in. I've said this the last couple episodes, so for the fans listening out there, it's not to beat a dead horse, but it's to drive home the point that I understand the convenience factor of plugging directly in. And as you said, dust storms, rain, drunks dumping their beer in, that is nice to get around having to worry about that, because that is a scary thought when you're working with expensive equipment. But I'm the sicko who liked lugging that shit around. I'm the one, like I said, who loved carrying that amp up 2 flights of stairs and thought I was going to puke by the time I got to the top because I was already drunk, and I'm like, fuck, I just carried this thing up 2 flights of stairs, now I got to carry it down. I loved it because once you're away from it, you miss it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you with that. And I'm a gear junkie too, and I'm a glutton for the punishment of it.
And that's it. I mean, because, when you're doing it every night, no, it sucks. And you're like, man, fuck this. But I haven't played actively out in a band in quite a few years, and I look back on it, and I'm like, man, what I would give to fucking haul this 100-pound, full stack up those goddamn stairs, because I miss that. And it's weird when you look at things in retrospect, and I'm like, man, I miss carrying my drummer's drums, that fucking asshole. I miss carrying all his drums and having to help him put it together than tear it apart, because he had way more drums than anybody should, and it was like it took you an hour to set the goddamn thing up. I miss it. So in that part, I do look at it like, man, some of that's going away, and I feel like people are already missing the experience of opening the album. Now they're missing the experience of really busting it for the show. So now everything, as you guys said, comes so easily that I feel like with the ease of things, yes, that makes life more comfortable, but it also makes life more comfortable. It's a double thing, because now you don't fight as hard for it. You don't respect it as much. And when you don't have the respect for it, you're not as hungry for it. And that leads to not as good quality of things, I think, sometimes. So, it's a double-edged sword.
Personally, though, I really like the more mainstream style of where everything is practically all digital, because, hell, Nate recently got a really cool piece of equipment. It's a tiny amp that by itself you can play through, and it sounds fantastic just by itself. But it also has the capability of hooking in directly into your laptop via a MIDI cable, MIDI to USB cable, and it has an amp simulator, which is just makes your computer become the amp, which is already a fantastic concept in and of itself. But the thing he can choose from a huge number of amp heads, cabinets, pedals, all accessed with it and everything, and hook directly into the computer, and have no worries about if the mic is going to pick up anything in the background, if the volumes are perfect on that. He can just go directly into it, and it sounds like high-end studio. I have an entire recording studio set up, and all I have is just a gaming laptop, a recording software, an electric kit, and stuff like that, and not a terribly expensive setup compared to the guy that's the producer that's produced our 2 songs. He has $100,000 or more setup, and I have maybe I've calculated roughly $3,000 setup, and which is actually pretty cheap for a full recording setup. And but it's awesome because it means that anybody and their mom can become a freaking recording artist. They can record themselves full on. And you don't have to worry about buying a really nice expensive guitar and rig. You can just use amp simulators and VSTs, which is just virtual instruments, and just buy a cheap MIDI controller, and you got an entire band by yourself, and it's amazing that way.
Well, you brought up a point that we talked about on other episodes, that with all these digital changes, with CDs to digital, with music from instruments to direct plugins and things, one of the categories that we have hit on is recording, because that is one of the most significant things I think that's happened. Because if you rewind back 20 years ago, you didn't have the option of really recording at home, or if you did, it sounded like ass. So you had to go to a studio,
Right.
and not everybody had a studio, so the studios were even more expensive because only every once in a while would you come across someone who had one and was proficient at it. So whenever it started becoming a thing where everyone could really go and buy an affordable setup to start recording, it changed the game of not only home recordings, it changed the game of finding more artists, because now more people would be willing to go spend $1,000 and then be able to have endless access to recordings than to go spend $1,000 at someone else's studio because they know that they're only going to be able to get a couple songs. So it really opened up that platform, as Zac mentioned earlier with MySpace. Around that time, between the MySpace to Facebook days, is around the time that studio equipment started dropping in price, started becoming more active, becoming more digital, and then even a few years later, it went from being some people had it to now everyone had it. Everyone had Fruity Loops or Logic or one of these, Pro Tools, one of these companies, these programs where they could start recording, and then that's when the boom happened and all these artists started getting discovered. And now bands are able to practice not being close to one another. You can be 8 hours apart and still have a proficient band because you send parts to one another, you rehearse it, and then you get together once a month and practice. Whereas before, that was never possible. You were constantly practicing because we had no way of exchanging music to one another. So, that's a very good point, Jesse, with the recording equipment. I'm glad you brought that up because that is very nice.
Yeah, like here recently, I've been all the band members have access to
the home studio.
Yeah, we all have access to home studio.
I do fervently believe that the live scene should try to stay as analog as possible, at least in metal, because it's just part of the aesthetic. I know it's in pop. About the closest thing you see to an instrument on a pop stage is the headset that they wear. And that makes me question all the dynamics that, how can you do dynamics if your mic is always right there?
True. Yeah, I mean,
But
metal, I think, is where it has to stay with instruments of some sort. I mean, like I said, I'm mixed on it. I see where people come from with wanting to get away from the amps, but it just, I know bands that don't really use the amps. Some of the bigger bands do direct in, but they still have amps on stage for the look. Now, they might not be using it, but they have it on there for the aesthetic. Now, you have bands that just don't have the amps on, and you look at the stage, and it's very barren. So then you have to make up for the instruments by having all kinds of banners. So you have all these banners to fill space on the stage because you don't actually have any amplifiers on the stage, and it's just strange to me. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a gearhead. I loved my equipment. I loved going back and being responsible for the tone and the sound. I liked that if the next song was coming up and it needed a little bit of a change, I got down and was adjusting the knobs for the next stage. Not that I just pressed one button and I'm like, there it is. I don't know. I just like that experience. Right. I like chaos, like I said, and I like to know that the next song could come on and maybe I fucked up and didn't turn the right knob, and now the tone's fucked and the whole crowd's looking at me and booing me. I loved the fear. I loved to know that there was a chance for mistakes, and now I feel like we've taken the chance for error away heavily, and that's convenient once again, but it takes away the fear, which takes away, the stress that makes great moments.
It takes away the soul of it, and I think it's worth more when you do it the old-fashioned way because you put more work into it. When you lug that 70-pound head and that 80-pound cabinet up all those stairs, and then you have to hook up all your pedals, and you do all the work and you dial in all the tone that yourself. When you do get on stage and it is your time, and you are hitting it and everything's going right, it's worth 1,000,000 times more than if you just carried up a little box, plugged in your wireless, and you were good to go. Didn't break a sweat bringing your equipment in. I think that's just part of the heart and soul of it all.
I just wonder what kids talk about now. Like, when I used to finish the show and come off stage, people would be like, bro, sick guitar, but like, what else are you working with back there? What head, what cabinet, what equalizer? Now I feel like it'd be like, bro, what are you working with besides your ESP guitar? Oh, monster cable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what else? No, that's it, bro. Just my ESP and my monster cable. I don't have anything else. I just plug directly into the PA. No other equipment, man.
What's the download link for your tone?
That's it. Yeah, I can send you the www link for the tone that I downloaded off the internet. But no, wild shit, man. Definitely wild shit.
I tell you, do what? I was going to say, as a drummer, I know drummers have access to electric kits. Like I have one here at home, and Zach, he's a drummer too, just as a hobby, and he has an electric kit as well. But I mean, as a drummer on live stage, like I really very much prefer an acoustic kit. I have 2 acoustic kits, and I prefer my acoustic kit on stage. You know, showing it and seeing it. Miking up way better than electric kits as far as live shows go. I use an electric kit for studio work only, at least for my own studio work. But even so, when we go to our producer, I like to bring my acoustic kit for him to mic up. It might be more complicated, but I just love it more than using the electric kit for that. But especially for live shows, because you just when you look at it on stage and stuff, it's just so damn beautiful. And you can show it off, and you show your big ass kit to the fans, and they can see your kit at other shows and stuff. You, as the drummer, the first thing I look at is, you know, what does the kit look like?
Well, that's it. Is, I mean, me and my bro who, you know, play guitar in my band, we love to show our gears. We love to show our amps and everything we had. We came out with PV6505 plus tube amps. We came out with Mesa Boogie rectifier amps. We had the half stacks or the full stacks. We had the LED lights that glue in it that made it shine with the special canvas, you know, screen fronts to them and the full entire rack mounts. I mean, when we came that out, for anybody who knew guitar or knew metal, or even for the kids that didn't but just knew it looked cool as shit, they would look at that and you automatically were taken serious. It was a sign of respect that they're like, oh shit, these dudes ain't playing. And now it's like, I don't know how you would get that if you walk out and just plug into the amp and you just stand there, because like when I see that, I'm like, oh man, these guys are gonna suck. And maybe they won't, but that's my feeling because I'm old school, so I don't know. But you know, before we go too much more into any conversation here, we got some thumbs up coming in the comments, so I don't know exactly what that's to, but fuck yeah, thumbs up. We're going to jump into the other song, and then when we come back, I got 2 rounds of questions that you'll each get a chance to answer on. One is one I ask all my guests, and one's a newer question I have been asking that's pretty fucked up, so you guys will get a chance to answer it. But we're going to jump into the other track here, which is Jaded, and folks, we'll be right back on Uncovering the Underground. This is Shockwave Theory, and this song is Jaded.
Now I'm
All right, and we're back on Uncovering the Underground radio podcast show. We've been hanging out with Shockwave Theory from Indiana State, 5-piece metal band that we have been, hanging out with for a little over an hour now. Checked out 2 of their songs that we had for this evening, one of which was Let's Go to War, and Jaded. I was about to say Let's Get It. I don't know where the hell that was coming from, but either way, having some great conversation, enjoying each other's company, and just getting to know one another. I always enjoy every band and every artist that comes on, as I'm sure you guys love listening out there. If you love this band, you like what you've heard, and you want to support them, make sure that you go check out their songs. Make sure you pick up anything that they have for sale. If they're playing in a town or an area near you, please go check them out. Show your love and support for these guys. As I say every episode, you folks are the lifeblood for these artists, so please help them out to help them continue to do what they love to do. Now, for the last 2 questions of the evening, I like to end it. I start traditionally and I end it traditionally to myself, which is these questions. The first question, and we'll give each of you a chance to answer, and I'll pick you one by one, is going to be, if you had all of the time back, every minute that you've spent practicing, reading, rehearsing, studying, performing, recording, everything that you've ever put into music in general throughout your whole life, if you had all of that time back right now, poof, what is the one other thing in life that you would choose to put that focus into? And I want to start with you, Zach. No, that makes sense. So you would keep it in the arena of music rather than straying from music, but you would just work on trying to perfect the areas that you feel that maybe you could have done better, which I think we all could. I mean, if I would have started over again, I probably would have focused on playing classically and playing trained. I taught myself 100% of the guitar that I know and became a pretty good guitar player, but I did it all on my own. And if I could have went back and redone it, I would have done it with a proper teacher. I would have started doing it with classical playing rather than metal, and really done it right from the get-go. And, that way I could be one of those master shredders now and just float like a butterfly, just be sweeping for days and 2-hand, 8-finger double tap sweeps and all the things that I can do, but to a level that's way beyond what I can do right now. So I completely understand that. How about you, Nate? What, if you had all your time back with music, do you have another hidden passion that you would like to put that into? Okay. No, see, that's why I love this question, because you get a lot of different answers. I mean, I've heard everything from not doing the playing of music, but being an engineer behind the boards. I've heard, obviously, as you said, blacksmithing. I've heard a couple weeks ago someone said a neuropsychologist. I've had someone really surprise me, and he said, if I could have all my time back, the one thing I would definitely put all my time into is fingerboarding. And I was like, fingerboarding like the little skateboards? He's like, absolutely. He says, it's one of my hidden passions in life. And he was being dead serious. At first I thought he was fucking with me. And I was like, is he joking? And the rest of his band's like, no, man, he's not. And he's like, oh no, I go to competitions across the country and everything. He's like, but if I had more time, I'd be one of the best there ever was. And I'm like, that is the craziest and weirdest shit I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, but thank you for sharing. So no, yeah, you're going to have to look it up because that's just a weird thing. But no, blacksmithing and blade work, I think, would be actually a really cool thing. I've always found interest in watching someone do that. Okay, no, that's cool. I like that. And what about you, Jesse?
Big bugs and all the new. I can hear myself. All the ancient big bugs and stuff like that, as well as the future of like AI and all that.
Now, question real quick before we go any further. Do you say you were hearing yourself?
Yeah, for a second I could hear myself. So it was making me, like right now, I can hear myself again a little bit. That's
weird. And someone just said that they couldn't hear you guys talking, which I don't know why, because I watched the boards the entire show, and I'm watching you guys. Everything you say is hitting on the meter, so I'm not sure if that's just you out there, Pete, that's saying you can't hear. I'm hoping that we didn't lose you guys for some reason, because I can hear you guys crystal clear. If we did
Jesse echoing, I just checked and my mic isn't muted. I'm not sure if y'all can still hear me.
Hear you?
Well, I'm not sure.
Echoing now though.
He's saying he can hear you guys now. Are you guys still hearing each other? Like, is it echoing on your end?
No, I can hear everyone fine.
Okay, so I'm not sure what happened.
No,
there.
but when he said he could hear himself, I could hear him echoing.
Huh.
Yeah, it was just Jesse echoing.
Well, I apologize for folks out there if we're getting any weird things going on. There is a storm. I can hear the wind beating on the side of the house right now, so it could be on my end. I know, like I said, my power has flickered on and off multiple times. For anybody who might have missed anything, we started with Zac, and Zac said that he would spend his time on his technique because over the years he certainly, got very versed in his instrumentation, but he wishes he would have done it in a little bit of a different way where he would come off stage with his hand not hurting as bad and could have been a little smoother on that regard, in which we talked about. I certainly feel the same. And then Nate had talked about doing blacksmithing and wanting to work with blade work outside of music. Jesse said working with the sciences and working with anything space-related, genetics-related. So if anybody missed that, I truly do apologize. Like I said, it could be the storm. It's weird. It seems like it always storms when I do shows, and that's anybody who's an avid fan of mine knows that. Like a lot of these shows that I do always seem to follow with a storm. I don't know why that is, but that's what you missed there. But I'm glad that everybody seems to be hearing it again now. If anybody has any further problems before the end, please let me know, because we're getting into our last question here, and this one's a very interesting one on perspective of who you are as an individual. And there is no right or wrong answer, so please don't feel like it is. This just says what's more important to you between the two, and everybody has their own focus. This is the end of your life. Your life is about to come to an end here and cease. You are able to spend that last several moments of your life with your loved ones and your family. But the choices are either A, you can be close to them, hold them, hug them, kiss them, physically be with your family, but you are not allowed to write down or say anything. There can be no communication with each other than physical touch. Or B, you can talk to them and tell them absolutely anything that you have to tell them or want to tell them, but you are separated by a barrier. And you cannot touch each other at all, and it's simply just expressing yourselves to each other verbally. What do you pick? And we're going to go vice versa order here. Jesse, we're going to start with you.
I mean, my family and loved ones we're tight as a freaking drum. I mean, I take care of my parents, and I help my younger brother out and everything too. So I would have to say probably the first one, where it'd be physical like interactions, but not being able to say anything. I mean, I'm not the best with words anyway, but as much as I like to talk and as much as I would want to explain to them anything and tell them as much as possible things, I'd hate that freaking barrier like it was the worst thing in the world, because I'd much rather just be able to hug them. Even if I couldn't tell them I love them, they would know, because like I said, we're very tight knit, so we have that kind of connection as a family. So I'd rather just be able to hug them until I take my last breath. I tell you that much.
No, perfect. No, that's why I like to hear, because everybody has their own reasons why and their own choice of the two. And then Nate, how about yourself? Would you go with choice A of the physicality, or would you go with B of verbality, be able to be verbal?
It would absolutely have to be going with the first one, the physical touch, because there's a million things that I would want to say, but there is nothing that I can say that can equal what a hug would do, or what a kiss on the forehead would do, or any kind of physical affection. You can say so much with just a touch on the shoulder, let alone, a hug or, anything physical. And there's just no words that can accurately communicate that love like action can.
No, I completely get it. And how about yourself, Zac?
With being, 1,000 things that I would have going through my mind, that it would kill me not to be able to say, coming from a personal point of this past year, having a cancer scare. I thought I was going to die. I didn't think I would be here right now. And then, second of all, I've lost I lost a family member in a freak accident, and it just kind of really makes you, it opens you up, and makes you think just for just a second, to go back and enjoy every smell and every touch of, it's the personal touch of, being close to them instead of, being a distant person like I really found myself being in the past,
And that's
what
why
do I say about that?
Well, that's why I like that question, because it is going to be unique to each and every person. And you do have a lot of people that say touch. You have a lot of people that say speak. And there is, like I said, no right or wrong. Some people are more verbal people. They can really express themselves verbally, and they are someone who likes to say something, and they need you to hear what they have to say. Other people say, you know what, I'm not as Jesse said, I'm not a big verbal person, but holding someone would be good. And as Nate said, I can give them a hug and express everything I have to say in a hug. For me, I'm torn on it. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the one on the receiving end of that I have to answer, but I like putting you guys on the spot. So, no, they're all very good answers and very good reasons as to why you've given those answers. Now, I'm looking at the clock here. It looks like we're running down at the end here. For anybody listening out there, once again, I apologize for any technical difficulties we experienced tonight with the storms. To you guys at Shockwave Theory, I can't talk. To you guys at Shockwave Theory, I apologize if there was any cutouts that people experienced whenever you guys were talking there for a couple minutes. But other than that, I did appreciate having you guys on the show, getting to pick your guys' brains and meet you. I'm certainly a fan of what you guys are doing. I look forward to more songs to come, more news to come from you guys, and certainly we'll be keeping an eye out on you. Now, whoever wants to take it, I don't know if there's anybody that would be more geared towards it, but whoever wants to tell us where we can check you out at, what we can check out, and any upcoming news that you want to share with us, and then we'll go ahead and finish out for the evening.
You can just check us out anywhere that music is found, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Music, pretty well all the big ones. Of course, Facebook, and just about any social media out there, you can find us, and you can find us in the two singles that you heard today. And here soon we have a third one that we have yet to actually really talk about on social media, but it's going to be going into the studio pretty soon, and we'll have more on that on our social medias. So just go ahead and search Shockwave Theory and hit follow and stick around and wait for the updates, and we'll keep pumping out single after single.
Now you heard it, guys. Go ahead, Zach.
I said new stuff is going to be sick. It's going to be awesome, very diverse.
I can't wait to hear it, man. You guys have certainly shown a progression in what I've heard, and I can't wait to hear more along the way. So, like I said, folks, if you're out there listening, please give them a like, a share, a follow. Keep an eye on the upcoming news of different things that they got going on, including releases of new music. If they come and play near you, go and see them. Support them in any way that you can. Make sure you share around tonight's episode. And other than that, fellas, it was a pleasure getting to talk with you tonight.
It was fantastic to be here. I'm just happy to be here. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
I love doing these things.
Absolutely. It was an honor to be here, honor to be on the show, and glad to meet you.
You as well. Well, you guys be safe in this COVID environment. Like I said, make sure you guys keep you and your family safe. And I look forward to maybe getting to talk to you guys again down the road.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Well, listen, you have a wonderful rest of your night. And for the fans out there listening in, make sure you share around this episode. Jump into our past episodes and check them out for this season as well. And if you're wondering who we got coming up next week on February 24th, Thursday, we have Echoes from Oblivion, another band from Indiana. I don't know what's going on with Indiana for some reason, but we're getting back to back. We got Echoes of Oblivion The following week, March 3rd, is our off week. I am out of town doing a paranormal investigation in New York, and I will be back after that for the show on March 10th as the return guests, my friends in Angelic Desolation. Always a very good time with those guys, extreme grindcore. And then after that, we have a couple different dates that we're working on to get back our guests from Endbringer that we had to reschedule because of things going on with my family and COVID, passings of family members. So we'll be bringing back Endbringer and getting them rescheduled. We'll be getting Patrick of Nine Stitch Method rescheduled as well. And then on March 31st, we will be bringing on Natasha Sarver, who is the owner of Little Shop of Lilith. It's a spiritual shop that has many different items you can buy in the witchcraft field. She is also the singer for the band Animus, and we'll be bringing her on to talk to her. So some great guests coming up. We're working on booking April right now. If you or someone you know is in a sick band out there, or is a great comedian, a great athlete, a model, an actor, it doesn't matter what they are. If they're great at something and it should be known by the masses, feel free to hit me up and we'll see if we can get them on the show. Other than that, I love you guys. Thank you for all your support out there. And this is Freighter Crow signing out from Uncovering the Underground. We'll catch you next time. Have a good night.